Perfect. And again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lily Gazoo, and I am with the Zoning Administration Division of the Department of Planning and Development with Fairfax County. Tonight with me are Casey Judge and Bill Mayland, both from the same department. Casey's going to help us moderating the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And we would ask if you could hold off asking questions until the presentation is completed. But feel free to type in your questions in the chat. Casey will also be monitoring the questions in the chat. And once the presentation is done, we will go over your questions. With that, I will go through the presentation. It's a very brief presentation and will give us sufficient time to go over your questions before the end of the meeting by 8 p.m. So please let me know, Casey, maybe when you see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So as I mentioned briefly earlier, this presentation is about the special events proposed zoning ordinance amendment that would look at both the existing standards we have in the zoning ordinance and our process in reviewing and approving the administrative permit for special events in Fairfax County. The special event this topic was raised by the board. We were directed to look at both the standards and our process in order to be able to increase flexibility, including revisiting the time limits and looking for any unnecessary impediments that hold up permit processing, or even the standards that may discourage special events from taking place. The board is looking at these types of events that could potentially activate spaces and help out in placemaking and add vitality to places in Fairfax County. So to go over the existing standards, what we or the zoning ordinance defined as special events is temporary outdoor activities on private property. So this type of event does not include any activity on the road, on the public right of way, or inside a structure. This would only be applicable to events that are outside in the open area, in the parking lots and in sidewalks within the private property. The special events application type includes seasonal sales, grand openings, community or cultural events, festivals, including music and art festivals, fairs, and it also includes carnivals, circuses, and similar such events are all included in the special events definition. And in order to be able to operate a special event, applicants would need to go through our application process, online application process, and secure an administrative permit. The administrative permit only allows up to 21 days. Anything beyond that, if an event takes longer than 25 days, whether it's 21 days, whether it's consecutive or non-consecutive, then it will require a special permit. And special permits are a type of zoning permit that requires approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The current fee for the administrative permit for special events is $240, while the special permit fee is $4,805. So when event organizers come in and apply for a special event, the administrative permit with zoning, zoning is the basically gatekeeper or facilitator, and then we take in the application And as part of our review, our partner agencies are either notified through our application system to review it, or the applicants are encouraged or directed to go and contact other uh, permitting agencies that need to be involved for either life safety issue, or maybe if there's food being served. So for example, the health department is included in our application system. If there's any food, unpackaged food specifically, is being sold, or if there's portable toilet included in the event, then the health department will get to review it as part of the zoning administrative permit. Other reviewers include the fire marshal's office and land development services. They look at the event and the items included in the event from the perspective of life safety. For example, if there are propane gas tanks, or if there are tents above a certain square footage, the fire department will need to review and issue their own permit. And sometimes when there's a large gathering, for example, more than 500 people attending in a confined area, then the fire department will get involved because they need to review for crowd management, and a life safety plan will be required. Similarly, if there's um, games and like structures that need a building permit, the Land Development Services Department would be involved, and larger tents, larger than 6,000 square feet, would also require review and building permit by the Land Development Services. Any event that flows into the street will require approval from the Virginia Department of Transportation, and then anytime there's alcohol involved, approval from the Virginia Department of Alcohol and Beverages will be VABC will be required. So basically, we are the first stop, and then additional review may be triggered, and then we facilitate that the life safety and all county code, in addition to the zoning ordinance, all county code, all state and federal codes are also met. So in looking in our research, we looked at the existing standards and also the standards that are applicable, or what we found in adjacent jurisdictions. We have proposed certain changes to the existing process as well as the existing standards. We're looking at maybe allowing a few special events that are the extent is smaller to be permitted by right. And then when we get to the administrative permit portion, we're looking at it maybe tiered approach to that. So regardless whether it would be by right or with an administrative permit or with a special permit, all events would need to still meet all county code, state code, and federal code requirements. What we're looking at is by right to allow up to 1 day per event, and events that do not take more than 8 hours, and that may not occur later than 10 p.m. or earlier than 7 a.m. The number of people, the maximum number of people at any one time, we're looking at no larger than 200 anticipated attendees. These types of events that qualify to be allowed by right, we're proposing that they do not trigger or require additional review by our partner agencies like Fire, Health, LDS, and Animal Protection Services that typically involved if there is any traveling animal exhibition included in a special event. Certain events are exempt and by right, even today, those are events on county property or park authority property or the Fairfax County public school systems. Examples of these types of events would be the grand opening to a restaurant, a retail store, or a business that is, occurring in front of their store business and is not taking more than, one day is just a 1 day grand opening, not more than 200 people at any one time, and then meets the other requirements in terms of duration. For the special events that are permitted with an administrative permit, we are looking, as I mentioned, at a tiered approach. The first tier would be, again, smaller events, but that are more that are larger than the by right one, which means they could be up to 2 days, for example, and again, no more than 8 hours, and the limitation on how late or how early they can start is the same as the by right. But we're looking at larger than 200 people, but still under the 500 threshold so that it would not trigger a review by the fire department. Again, these events that would qualify for the tier one would not trigger a review by our partner agencies like the fire department, LDS, and all the other departments. There will be an application fee for these types of events, and it will be $120, which is the same fee that we currently charge for food trucks. The second tier would be for all other events that do not require a special permit, which is the highest tier, I would say. So this would capture all the events between actually higher than 2 days, more than 2 days, so 3 to 60, I should say 3 to 60 days per event. It could be consecutive or non-consecutive. They may have more than 500 anticipated attendees at any one time because they already would need to get approval from the fire department, if they have any structures from the LDS, if they have food from health and animal protection. The application fee is not proposed to be changed. The current $240 fee would still be applicable. And as part of tier two, we also have seasonal sales, which would be allowed for 45 days, which is an increase from the current 21 days. And then we are keeping the 30 days between events that's already in the existing standards. Carnivals and circuses will keep the 21 days that is already included in the existing standards. Any event that needs or takes additional time longer than the 60 days or 45 days for seasonal sales or 21 for carnival circuses will require special permit approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals, or it may be included in their previous or future profit conditions if they get different types of zoning approval. As part of the improvement to our processing and the application process in general, we're looking at allowing up to a 2-year permit for a program of events. For example, uh, a certain type of event could take place every year during the same period of time, the same number of people. So the extent and duration and timeline of the event, if that does not change, we're proposing maybe the zoning administrator would be able to approve an administrative permit instead of a one-time them having to come every year. It could be issued for a 2-year period, and this could include multiple events as long as they are the same each time. And then once that 2-year period is completed and there has not been any violations and everything is still will continue to be the same, we can look at issuing a 5-year permit during that time. But this is only applicable to the zoning permit. Additional review by the fire department is if it's required, they would still need to make sure that they get that permit. So that is all for the special event section in our research, we also looked at changes that could make sense in making to the existing food trucks standards, and we also got feedback on these from both applicants and commissioners. So currently, the food truck standards limits the number of days non-residential users in residential districts can have food trucks to 12 times. And these types of non-residential users are typically the community or HOA pool in residential areas. They're limited to 12 food trucks, 12 days per year. So we are looking at maybe increasing it to 32 times per year. And this aligns with the number of weekends there are between the Memorial Day and Labor Day weekend, and that includes the two Monday holidays, and that gives us about 32 days. And so we are proposing to increase it to 32 days. We also are looking at another limitation we have in the zoning ordinance for food trucks, which limits up to three food trucks are permitted at any one time, provided the lot has a principal structure or the main structure with a gross floor area of 25,000 square feet or more. If it's less than 25,000 square feet or more, they cannot have food trucks right now. And given the popularity of food trucks, we thought maybe we could look at allowing at least one food truck if the size of the structure on any given lot is less than 25,000 square feet. Um, the current zoning ordinance does allow food trucks to be located on active construction sites, provided they have a, building permit for an active construction, and that is not proposed not to be changed. So our next steps is to gather more input. As I mentioned earlier, this is all draft at this point. So we are reaching out to the community, to stakeholders, to event operators, food truck operators to get feedback, and then we will refine our proposal before getting authorization from the board, probably this fall or winter of 2024. And then we hope to get to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for public hearing winter of 2024 or 2025. And that concludes the presentation. We do have the information on our website. We will update the website regularly. This recording will be posted on the website, as well as any upcoming meeting information will be there. And once we refine and finalize the draft text, that would also be available on the website. So that concludes my presentation, and we will open it up for questions. And as mentioned earlier, if you want to type in your questions in the chat, that would be great, and Casey will monitor it. Or you can also raise your hand and unmute your speakers to if you want to ask the questions yourselves. Perfect.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Flaster. I live out in Burke, Virginia. I'm also president of the Board of Trustees of the Burke Center Conservancy, but I'm not speaking in that capacity. I have a technical question that I want to ask. So if you would just oblige me, we could go back to the slideshow where you have the AP Tier 1 and the AP Tier 2. I have a question on the technical requirements on that.
Sure. Tier 1 and Tier 2. Yes.
Yeah, it's the question of both. So was there an earlier?
The by right one?
Let's go to the second one then. Let's go, but yeah, I'm sorry. Let's go to the AP one. Um, so what this is saying is no more than 2 days per event between 201 to 499. Um, so let's look at. I'd like to look at tier two, please. So what I'm trying to sort through is I think most of our events are likely less than 500, um, but it might be close. But if we just have one event and we have say over 500, does that fall into tier one or tier two?
If even if it's one day and it's over 500
Uh huh.
anticipated attendees, then it would be peer two. So basically, I'll go back to the by right.
Right.
If the event does not meet all of these, we
Mm-hmm.
look at tier two. It might be kicked into tier two. But if there's even one thing, like for example, the number of attendees exceeds this, then
Right.
you'll be automatically into tier two.
Right. Okay. That's I wanted to clarify that. And then my second part of the question is I think I saw something along the lines of if we have the same event more than say once a year, let's say we have two two events or three events that are exactly the same, uh,
Mhm.
they would be looked at specially, and there would be one decision for all those events as long as they meet the criteria. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes. So what this means, what we're looking at as a program of events for up to 2 years, let's say
Right.
you have four identical events
Right. Hmm.
um, per year, maybe.
Right. Hmm.
Then right now you would have to come in 4 times to get the same
Right.
type of
Right.
permits. You're not changing anything. So
Hmm.
that may qualify. Again, it will be case by case. We would still
Sure.
review it because it's an administrative permit. As part
Right.
of the review, will ensure that it will be the same thing. You probably will have to sign something that nothing changes, but
Sure.
it would be, you wouldn't have to come in uh, less than 2 years.
So
So
would
it
this
would be
then be
issued for a 2 year period.
it's so so arguably or what I think what I'm inferring here is that it'd be one application for all the events that are exactly the same. And so would there just be one charge for that particular application?
That is correct.
Okay. And how much is it in tier two? Is it 240?
240.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just to clarify, I did not go over the options that the board would consider. When
Mhm.
we refine the text, we're going to have options for the board to consider in terms of, for example, the number of days. We say, you know, 3 to 60 days for tier two, and then we might give them an option to look at a range between maybe 45 to 75.
Mhm.
Or so they would look, and it all depends on what the board adopts at the end if they decide to adopt this. But even for the permit, we're saying 2 years, they may say 1 year. So just so you know, this is still a draft.
Sure. And so the board will decide exactly how they want
Sure.
this to turn out. Sure. I understand that. Thank you very
Sure.
much. Now I have to figure out
And they
how
may
to
decide,
hands.
yeah. And they may decide to charge higher. Maybe if it's a 2 year permit, they may say maybe charge higher, but we're proposing to keep the $240.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Lily, we do have a question in the chat as well from Jeannie. And it's, would the proposal eliminate the need to purchase permits from partner agencies such as the fire marshal or health department?
Um, Not really, because some of the requirements, for example, the fire marshal's office may have other, state requirements. Life safety is a state requirement, so we don't have the ability to, or eliminate that. So they would still need to do their review and may need to issue a permit. Health department, the same thing. The number of portable toilets are based on the number of attendees, and that is a state requirement. But right now, it's included in our permitting. So if it's by right, that's why we say it should not trigger review by the fire department or health department or any other agency, because their review would still be required. So whatever event qualifies for the by right or tier one cannot trigger review by any other agency. Mark, you have a question again? I don't know if you meant to lower your hand or you had a follow-up question, Mark?
And feel free if you're having trouble with the microphone, if you want to put it in the chat too, we can respond to it that way.
Sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. My question is, how long is there a standard for the county to review the request for special events?
The lead time for applications?
Mhm.
So currently it's about 30 days for the administrative permit, but the special permit takes a little bit longer because there's a lot more that needs to be done before we go to the board. Staff reports have to be prepared. There are notification requirements, so within a certain timeline. So it takes about 120 days for the special permit, or it needs to be submitted 120 days before the event. These are for the larger events. For the administrative permits, though, it takes an average of 14 days for us to review it, but we are looking at maybe making it shorter for maybe the tier one. The by right will not have any review.
Right. So tier one, what you'd like to do is get to 14. And then what about tier two? Any thoughts on that?
Tier two, we are still open to taking a look at it, depending
Okay.
on the what it entails. Does it require additional review by either agencies or not? But we're still looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we had another question in the chat from Jeannie. What is the anticipated timing on getting the proposal presented to the board?
So yes, we are looking at maybe the end of this year or early next year. So we hope to get it authorized by fall or maybe towards the beginning of winter. But then we're looking at November, December of this year or January, February of next year between planning and the Board of Supervisors. Again, we do have a certain lead time that is required to prepare the staff report, finalize everything, and then, send out the ads for the public hearings. And we still have to get on the agenda for both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, but before the end of winter 2025. Jeannie, you have your hand.
Yeah, I just to tack on. Now I figured out my microphone, so I will talk instead of typing. I just wanted to ask also. So, would you anticipate, if everything goes the way that you're hoping, that the effective time might be 2025?
We're hoping you would be. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great. Any other questions, comments from anyone? I do have my name and my number here, but it's also listed on the website. I'm hoping everyone got the link to this meeting. via the website, the dedicated website for special events. There's my email address and my phone number on that as well. If you think of any other questions or if you have any comments, you can forward them to me.
Thank you so much for doing this.
You're very welcome. Thank you everyone for attending our meeting. I guess I'll give you back 30 minutes of your time. All right. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.